Before we get to any of that, Kemi Badenoch, the business secretary, I'm glad she said this. She's told companies to focus on delivering for customers and indeed their staff rather than activism and political causes. She's talking about like Coutts Bank. Do you remember that when Nigel Farage had his bank accounts cancelled and it emerged that they're all going on about, oh, well, this is against his politics are against our values. You're a bank. Make money. Make money for your customers. Make money for your investors. We don't care about your values. I mean, why are so many companies signalling their virtue? Oh, this is what we believe in. This is what just do what your company's supposed to do. Make profits, pay the workers well, pay your investors. Pay the directors and then everybody will be happy. Why are companies doing this? Now, one man who sort of caught the wrong end of this syndrome was retired Reverend Richard Fothergill. He went to a branch of the Yorkshire Building Society to be assailed by their, standing together with LGBTQ causes and all that sort of stuff. And he wrote to the Building Society and said, why are you doing this? I'm just asking, I just found it a bit strange to walk into your office and find all this regalia and gay pride stuff. Fine, if you want to do it, but just wondered why. They wrote back and said, right, we're closing your account. We cannot deal with it. Our relationship has completely broken down. Extraordinary way to treat a customer. So I thought he was just the guy to talk to. Let's talk. It's very kind of him to join us. He's retired Reverend Richard Fothergill. Welcome to the show, Richard.
Hi, Kevin. Well, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me on tonight.
Well, it's great to have you. Well, just run through what happened to you when you had your strange encounter, your dangerous liaison with the Yorkshire Building Society.
Well, I've been banking with them for 17 years. That was the first thing. And my father banked with them as well. And last summer, it all blew up this time last year, really. They were busy pushing LGBT, QAA, whatever. There's so many letters, a lot. Pushing out Pride Month. And the thing is, they'd always been saying to customers like me, all the time, they're saying, tell us how we're doing. What do you think about banking? We want to hear from you, all this kind of stuff, Yeah. So I did. First time I've ever done it. I wrote to them. I said, you're a good bank, but why on earth are you spending so much time and money and energy focusing on pushing this particular worldview, this particular ethic? And I said, particularly as a clergyman in the church, I have real problems with the transsexual element, because that very clearly is an ideology. And it's something, a tiny percentage of the population think they're the wrong sex, Yeah. So why do this? And honestly, I was responding to them. They'd asked, so I told them. There's nothing. And I thought at the time, if there's 100 other people, customers, who say something similar, maybe next year, 24, they won't push this LGBT stuff so heavily. Just get back to banking. That's who you are. Mm-hmm. Well, 2 weeks later, I got a rude letter from them saying, as you described a minute ago, Kevin, saying that the relationship between us has irrevocably broken down.
What? So, Richard, how would you describe that relationship? It's like they're treating you as if you're their lover or something. What on earth is that? Does that mean?
That's what I thought. Is this a divorce? Am I married to this bank? Very weird. And also the fact is, this is the first correspondence I'd had from them to me, other than them saying, we are a wonderful bank and we love to hear from our customers, So, and they say we must, the other thing they said, we must protect our staff. I presume that was protect them from wicked creatures like me, who are customers who have a different opinion on this area than some of their people do. Anyway, so they say, we're going to close your bank account in 2 weeks' time. Now, interesting enough, they broke the law on that, as it stands at the minute, because I've discovered subsequently they should have given me at least 60 days to take the money out of the account,
right?
Get the money into another account. Supposing it was a current account, it wasn't. It was a savings account, but supposing that was my main current account, and they said to you, "You're out of here. 2 weeks' time. You've got no banking." I'd have been really stuck, wouldn't I? These days, banking is like having water in your taps or electricity in your light bulbs, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
a utility. You can't live without banking.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Go on, carry on. Yeah. Sorry, Richard. I was just reading that they also were kind enough to inform you that the Yorkshire Building Society has a zero tolerance approach to discrimination. In what way, if you could elucidate, if you could inform us, do you think you were guilty of discrimination there?
Well, I wasn't guilty anyway. My letter was polite, just representing a different sexual ethic to the one they've bought into. Mm-hmm. And the ironic thing is these guys, they talk a lot about discrimination. But of course, they're the most discriminatory group. They were being discriminatory against me, who doesn't hold with LGBTQ sexual ethics. Simple as that. Yeah. So they what they mean is they have a certain orthodoxy of view, and anybody, and they're allowed, now people are allowed to agree with that, but if you disagree with it, we're going to discriminate against you.
I mean, I'll tell you what, I mean, you know, I'm with you all the way, but you could have just made your inquiry completely academic. I mean, you have views on the trans issues, a lot of us do, and I suspect you and I are probably on the same side of that fence, but you could have just written to them and said, look, you know, I've been banking here for a long, long time, and I just wondered why it is, you know, I want the building society that I invest in and I put my money in. I want it to be successful. I want it to make profits. That's a good place to keep my money. And I just wondered why it was you're spaffing all this money on saying how much you support LGBTQ, whatever it is, causes. I mean, what has it got to do with the Yorkshire Dam Building Society?
That was my point. That was my whole point. You're a good bank. Up until that point, they've been doing pretty well. But the interesting thing was, Kevin, they had a new CEO came in, a woman, a very woke woman, came in February, and I've seen subsequently her sort of first statement as the new CEO, and it's basically woke drivel. And it's also saying that we're going to go a long way because we embrace all the woke truths, and we have zero tolerance of intolerance, that kind of stuff. And that's the trouble. It's this particular individual. Obviously, she's got allies with the organisation who are all cheering her on. My also suspicion after the event, because I talked to the Free Speech Union. I don't know if you know them, Kevin.
Yeah, of course I do. Toby Young and the gang, yeah.
They're very helpful. Anyway, I've been a member of the Free Speech Union for 3 years. So I rang them up and had a good long chat with them, sent them my paperwork and their paperwork, and said, well, what do we do here? And they said, well, firstly, they have broken the law in 2 clear ways, and you haven't done anything offensive. Your letter was polite. It was not offensive. It was not discriminatory. And I said to them, have I said something wrong here? Is there something in my language which, you know, is bad or illegal? They said, not a bit of it. Total free speech in Britain. You're allowed to have these opinions. They asked for your view. You gave them the view, but it was the wrong view. So they didn't like it.
I mean, all you do was actually asking a question, but it, of course, feeds into what Nigel Farage endured at Coutts Bank, the top people's bank, when they tried to close his account, that debank him, just as they tried to debank you. And what bemused me about this, if you remember, there was a hell of a story, a hell of a fallout from all of that, that the bank, in their own meetings, was going on about, you know, their values and how they must redecorate the foyer in rainbow colours, and you know, that Nigel Farage stood against everything they stood for. I mean, you're a bank. Make money. Do what banks do. Why are companies doing this, Richard?
Well, I think it's a lot of peer group pressure. This is sort of seen as being enlightened. It's seen as being positive, caring for a minority. There's also been organisations like Stonewall, who I now personally think are probably one of the most destructive and divisive organisations in the country.
Agreed. Agreed.
Okay. Well, anyway, I think we'd all be a lot better off with them if they just left now. You know, back in the 1980s and 90s, there might have been a case for hearing about gay and lesbian rights. But now, when they've tacked on this nonsense of transsexual rights and then all these other odd minority criteria, they've now got themselves to a position of being essentially anyone who doesn't agree with our worldview is a bigot, is to be ostracized, is to be cancelled. Mm-hmm. And they are the bullies now. They really need to admit this. So Stonewall is not helping us, I'm afraid.
Indeed. But do you, I mean, again, I'm probably repeating myself here, but I don't understand why big corporations, companies, banks feel the need to signal their virtue about how much they love the LGBTQ community. Is it that if they don't do that, they fear they may be hit in the pocket? It may somehow affect their potential to make profits? Because I would suggest you're spending a lot of money on your rainbow foyers and all that and all these campaigns. Surely you are actually reducing your profits because you're spending money on stuff that's got nothing to do with your business. Why are they doing it?
In one sense, I don't know, but it's a cultural problem at the moment. But the upside of all this is we've seen, particularly in America, we're now seeing a really healthy kind of pushback against all this particular actually intolerance, which is what it is. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at the Budweiser story. I'm sure you know all about that. Yeah. And how go woke, go broke.
What's it? How much Dylan McGavin, what was that? Dylan, what's the name there? Dylan Mulvaney, yeah.
Right, last year they promoted a transsexual, a guy who thinks he's a woman, as their sort of brand kind of mascot.
And it didn't go too well, did it?
It didn't go too well. I mean, Budweiser is your authentic redneck beer, Yeah. In America, that wouldn't go down at all well. And amazing that their marketing people couldn't see that might be a problem.
Yeah.
And as a result, they've lost, $400 million?
Richard, it nearly crashed the company. It's Anheuser-Busch, one of the biggest brewing companies in the world, biggest in America. It nearly crashed the company. And guess what they had to do when they realised that Dylan Mulvaney, their trans spokeswoman, man, whatever you want to call her, in order to sort of redress the damage that she'd done, they had to come up with a marketing campaign which was full of good old boys standing on the edge of the bar going, yeah, Budweiser, yeah, that's so it didn't really work. But it's crazy, isn't it, that these companies, with products like beer, for God's sake, seem to feel that sort of LGBT, rainbow, all the colours of the rainbow will somehow or other do these companies good. Does Anheuser-Busch think I give a damn whether or not they're trans friendly? Do Coots think I spend any time at all wondering about their values? All I think is that a good bank? Does it make money? I don't care about their values, and it would be good if we could get that message across to them, couldn't it?
Well, I think the more of us, essentially normal people, stand up and say, no, this is nonsense. Get a grip. If you're a bank, be a bank. If you're producing beer, produce good beer. That's all we're interested in here. I think actually we will win the day. I really think it's quite positive. I think a pushback is going on now.
I'll tell you what, the world's going, man. Did you get your Yorkshire Building Society account back, Richard?
No, they cancelled it. And
Sorry.
2 weeks later, they sent me a cheque with a little bit of money that was in there. That's the end of that. They don't want to know anything about me. Interesting enough, though, there's other people. I had loads of people writing to me last summer saying, we're appalled on your behalf. Many of them had Yorkshire Building Society accounts. Many of them, I cancelled those accounts. Others kept them on. And then this year's AGM at Yorkshire, they asked a lot of awkward questions about the case of Reverend Fothergill, this sort of stuff, about trying again to push the board at Yorkshire to focus on what matters, focus on their banking. Don't mess around with all these cultural things. Stay in your lane. This isn't what it's about. So I understand that they actually they stirred it up a little bit at the AGM, which is good. You've got to do more of that.
Totally agree. And look what happened to Coots. Excellent to talk to you. And you're well out of the Yorkshire Building Society, if you ask me. Thank you so much, Richard. Really enjoyed that. Richard Fothergill, retired Reverend.